Welcome, dear friends, esteemed guests, and channel subscribers celebrating Christmas on the 7th. You know, for some reason I still feel that even if Zelensky hadn't rewritten this calendar, hadn't interfered, the Programmer's Day, which is done exclusively, deliberately exclusively, just to be contrary, that's it. Well, that's it. I still think it would be much nicer and better if we didn't have to be afraid to congratulate each other. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching. Denis Elisevich is live with us. Hello, Denis.
Hello, Alexander. Hello, viewers.
Friends, thank you all so much for subscribing. And of course, these broadcasts that go live there are first and foremost for communicating with you. So take advantage of the opportunity to ask a question during the broadcast. This will be at the very end during the Q&A session with the chat. I invite everyone to join the YouTube community. You can submit questions in advance during the broadcast, as some people already have. There's also the closed Telegram club Alshelest. Feel free to join. Let's start with today's broadcast poll. It goes like this. Who is turning up their nose more in the context of ending the war in Ukraine? Well, today we'll go over a few statements by Zelensky there. They're just phenomenal, simply mind-blowing. Well, basically, Russia says like they're turning up their nose, but we have partners who can twist that nose off. So in your opinion, who is turning up their nose more? Zelensky, Putin, Trump, or the coalition leaders? Or maybe the new entente that formed after yesterday's statements in Paris? So if we completely step back and look at the situation, who is actually making the most fuss and refusing right now? How do you view the progress toward peace?
I think it's the Europeans, in my opinion. And then Putin and Zelensky equally. Putin in his own way, Zelensky in his own way.
Well, look, yesterday's Paris was actually overshadowed by the Americans. We spent a long time wondering what was happening and where it was leading right before our broadcast. An incredible statement by Donald Trump, against the backdrop of today's seizure of 2 tankers, which is being linked to the Russian Federation, although everything there is also very conditional. This is purely a trade story, it's purely an echo of Venezuela, and everyone noticed that in fact no one actually touched these tankers. They tried, they escorted, they watched, but now it was possible. Now, when apparently a certain decision has been made by the Americans regarding Venezuela, they were basically stopped, inspected, sent off, and well, some say seized. We'll see. We still don't know what happened next. 1 tanker was moored in France, inspected and released. This time it had a Russian flag. Trump claims that without him, Russia would control all of Ukraine. Russia and China are not afraid of NATO without the United States, and I doubt that NATO would come to our aid if we really needed it. Everyone is lucky that instead of my first term, during my first term, I restored our military, and I continue to do so. We will support NATO, even if they don't support us. The only country China and Russia fear and respect is the United States. What kind of wording is that? We'll stand by them if they will, if they won't. Really? Feels like Trump is using this as a cover, similar to The Economist. Everyone saw the hand with the gesture in a handcuff for 2026, and then they looked closer. There's Maduro. Maduro loved that gesture, and now it turns out he's in a handcuff. It feels like this is some kind of puzzle too. It needs to be deciphered. As you can see, what does Trump mean?
Let's just say in this phrase there are several points to break down. Point 1. Without Trump, Putin would likely have already taken Ukraine, at least the left bank, if not the whole country. During his first term, Trump provided Stingers and other support. Javelins, RPGs, which we used to fight back in the first days. Basically, there was nothing else. As for everything else, what is there to disagree with? It's actually great that he said the United States won't abandon NATO, because right now people are trying to speculate about that. He said everything right in my view. It's just a signal, that's how I see it. And about the first tanker they seized, Bella, I think. It's already heading for the United Kingdom.
Well, that makes the situation even more tense, you see, because we started seeing this tanker war a little earlier. A Chinese tanker was also seized with Venezuelan oil, and Trump was particularly proud of it, saying, "I'll take this oil and the tanker will be ours." China, in fact, lodged a strong protest, but no further action followed. Just as China lodged a strong protest over Venezuela. They say, "Return him, release Maduro, let us hide him here, we guarantee his complete safety. This is just lawlessness." But no one responded to this move by Trump. How do you assess it? Are these tankers and the talks about Greenland really a sign of a new world order? But what kind of order is it? And how will they follow its rules elsewhere?
Many believe this is a new world order due to statements by Trump and Godeb. Here are the pictures they published showing the Western Hemisphere below us, and people are reacting. In reality, what Trump is doing is not an escalation. It's a reaction to the actions of authoritarian countries. It's a reaction to the actions of Putin. It's a reaction to the actions of this whole coalition, this so-called coalition. China, Iran, Russia, well, you can add North Korea to that list as well. That's why they started acting without limits. I know people draw parallels, probably on your broadcasts, since we talk after events like what happened with Maduro. I'm sure people on your broadcasts were making those comparisons. So how is Trump different from Putin then? How is this different from that? It's actually very different. Because Trump ended up at the table with card sharks, and the card sharks are trying to cheat everyone in the card game, and Trump has no choice but to get up and punch someone in the face. That's how I see it.
But there could be a response as well. Well,
let's take a look.
No, look, let's just think about this rationally. Of course, everyone got really worked up. These are emotional events. Here is the Russian flag, which for a couple of weeks was, let's say, like a V, and the circle that could be drawn around the American military. You know, sometimes the American military managed to capture some tankers, sometimes they didn't. These companies whose ships we're talking about, they change flags like gloves. It's a common practice. It's a way to avoid taxes. So that's the cheating you mentioned. However, when, well, there were the Houthis, yeah, things were completely out of control there because you couldn't really tell who was who. Some Houthis were bombing them. Sometimes they were winning, sometimes not. So there it was a clear influence, but here the influence is coming from an official structure of the United States of America, which basically amounts to a declaration of war. Because the flag today, before our broadcast, a few minutes ago, the Russian Ministry of Transport explained that the flag was temporarily displayed on December 24th because the company paid for it. You can do that, but that's an act of war. So is Trump really ready to push the world to the brink of nuclear escalation?
No, then I have a question for you. Why is it called the Shadow Fleet?
Because it's all about cheating with flags.
Well, that's the only reason why cheaters get punched in the face by the Shadow. Because Russia can't legally conduct global correspondence or business between tankers and oil deals. It operates semi-legally. The civilized world cracks down on such a shadow market and shadow fleet. I think we should, well, it's your channel, do as you like. We need to break down the whole chain to understand the full picture from Venezuela and roughly speaking up to Iran today. We definitely need to discuss what will happen next because people really need to understand that this is all a chain of related events. Sasha, if you remember, I was on your channel last year, probably in the fall, maybe in the summer, I told you. President Trump has a specific schedule during his term regarding the overthrow of authoritarian leaders of authoritarian countries. This is the plan being implemented. Back then, your subscribers laughed, well...
Look, no one has overthrown the Ayatollah in Iran yet. So far, only Trump is writing about it. And what happened with Maduro? Well, you're in America, you understand perfectly well. And he was assigned lawyers, pretty decent ones.
Very serious ones, yes.
I mean, in terms of both the statements and the process itself. As the illustrations show, these sketches depict a traditional American story when an artist draws portraits. Yes, his wife was there at the hearings, and he clearly stated there, "I am a prisoner of war," you understand? So we already have an idea of what the defense strategy will be, because there was a comment from the lawyer. So when I or someone else says that Maduro's capture was lawless, it really was lawless, but the question is, was Maduro betrayed? And it's also hard to say that this is the first dictator to be overthrown. His vice president is acting as interim leader. Basically, the regime remains, but now it's a different story. It's a colony of the United States of America. Now they're in very tough conditions, under strict limits, and as the press writes today, they have to give up China, Russia, and their usual cooperation partners.
We, as decent people, shouldn't nitpick like Russian propaganda by only focusing on the consequences. If we just look at consequences, Trump is the top lawbreaker globally. But I can list many reasons for this. What Maduro did in Venezuela, betraying America, mocking his own citizens. Venezuela is a testing ground for Hezbollah and many, many other things. So this is a reaction to what was happening. We need to talk. Maduro was ruining Venezuela. What a good guy. Democracy is thriving in the country. Then Trump arrives, takes something, kills civilians, and allows missiles against them. It was a magnificent operation. The American army put together a copy. I saw a video today. I saw a copy of Maduro's house for training. Trump personally observed these trainings. It was a fantastic operation. He was precisely kidnapped and killed. There were 40, 50 people there, most of whom were Cubans, and his security, by the way, some of them deserted. You know, there were agents and quite a few CIA among Maduro's security. It's not like what Putin did with Ukraine. I mean, it was a precise operation. I could talk about Venezuela's economy for hours. You know that Venezuela's gross domestic product in 2010 was $320 billion, and in 2024 it's 100. That's in a country with $17 trillion worth of oil reserves, almost 19% of the world's reserves, and an unimaginable amount of gold as well. How can this go on like that?
So is Maduro a scapegoat?
No. Maduro is the first signal. It's the closest to the states except for Cuba, which is minor. It's all about the influence of China, Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah. Netanyahu celebrated New Year's with Trump here for a reason. It's connected to this operation, and events in Iran are related too. Watch the next event now. First of all, it's impossible without Mossad. When things flare up in several cities at once, people can stir up trouble in one area. In a country under such pressure like Iran, this can only happen with involvement from Israeli or possibly American intelligence. It's happening now. Keep watching. Now, Musk should turn on Starlinks over Iran for free so that communication would be better. And then this situation will tip the scales even more toward overthrowing the regime. The past 2 nights have been tough. Protesters have taken over some administrative units. It's a long story.
So it turns out that America is changing the regime by force. But as I'm discussing this with you, I'm leading to the idea that the regime hasn't actually changed. When you say Maduro, pre-Maduro, listen, yes, his entire vertical of power has remained intact. Right now, of course, he's speaking out against that Minister of Defense, basically the Minister of Internal Affairs, who is especially public and outspoken. But basically nothing has really changed. It's just like they removed the top layer, the lid, but everything else has stayed the same. Look,
right now, Venezuela is a vassal of the United States, you said, or a colony. You said a colony.
turns out
Now you're talking about Maduro. Everything stayed the same vertically, but in these cases, you must choose. Either it's a United States colony or Maduro's vertical power stayed.
Look, the question is different. It's about Trump's style, which we're seeing now and the whole world is discussing. Did you notice that Ukraine has been pushed to the sidelines as a topic? Yes, negotiations are happening and Zelensky is making agreements, saying they're ready for tough talks, making statements. We'll discuss those now. But what is Trump's style all about? Trump's style is that he doesn't care about anyone. There is this set of arguments that you bring up about the negative aspects of Maduro's regime for Venezuelans, for example, but he doesn't care, meaning Venezuelans won't start living better. All he needs is for them to supply oil, give it, sell it, and not cooperate with Russia, China, or Iran to remove this influence from the hemisphere.
How do you know that?
It's obvious because he left everyone behind. People were knocking on his door. The opposition says, guys, here we are. Now it's Trump. I beat you there in the race for the Nobel Prize, but I'll give it to you. Just give me the president's seat. He dismissed everyone, saying, guys, no. Even in Buenos Aires, where people were celebrating and rallies were shown early on, he sent them away.
Left them.
Kept working with those who stayed.
Well, let's go in order. There's a rumor going around about Moncada that Trump isn't making her president right now because she didn't give him the Nobel Prize. That's why she quickly came out and said, I'm ready to share, and started playing along with the situation. In reality, there's a CIA report that says Maria Moncada shouldn't be put in charge right now. They need to try to work with this vice president, the woman who stayed instead of Maduro. And right now, the United States is putting very serious pressure on her, just like in the case with Ukraine. If this plan fails, plan B, C, etc. will start. We can't judge yet. It's only been about 5 days. About the fact that people won't live better. Well, you understand, hunger in a country that has $17 trillion worth of oil, and you say they won't, they will live better. How will they live better? Maduro nationalized businesses, organized torture, kidnapped people, and used violence. Amazing things happened there, but the economy is most important. That is, just understand Ukraine is following. Hyperinflation was measured in millions of percent. That is, it's an artificial controlled process. And if everything is civilized, if American corporations come in, if the country returns to a democratic path, of course, people will live better. A gross domestic product of $100 billion in a country with such crazy reserves of oil and gold is just absurd. That's a gross domestic product lower than in Ukraine. For context, Venezuela has 28-30 million people, about the same as Ukraine. Honestly, it's ridiculous. Russia's oil reserves are far below Venezuela's, even though Russia produces a specific type of oil.
But nevertheless, Trump is satisfied, Bali thinks so, and as they say, the profits are there. It's a specific type of oil.
This is once again Russian manipulation?
Russians.
No.
I understand that the science of chemistry with heavy oil is Russian science. Mendeleev. And we should ban it, but wait, no, we shouldn't ban it.
I'm just reading this. When Russians need to devalue something, what Trump said about Venezuela, yeah, there's oil, but it's lousy. Yesterday in Kyiv, I had debates, and honestly, it was lousy. Wherever America or Ukraine is, it's bad, but where Russia is, everything's great.
No, we actually haven't started talking about Russia yet. We'll get to that now, specifically about these ships. Listen, it's clear that once again, everyone needs to understand that there won't be any response. Yes, there is a precedent with the seizure of tankers. Well, fine. Will they just let it go? Will they respond symmetrically, asymmetrically? Will they respond at all? In principle. It's interesting that 2 tankers were seized, one in the south, the other in the north, and actually in Scotland there are 2 names for this ship. Sophia in the south and the second one in the north. And basically Iceland is nearby, the United Kingdom is nearby, and then there's Greenland, the infamous Greenland. And now everyone is asking, will there be a war within NATO over Greenland? Rubio is reportedly assuring everyone via diplomatic channels that everything will be fine. Basically, we'll accept it. Listen, what will they buy Greenland with? The profits from Venezuelan oil.
You know that the United States has a gross domestic product of $30 trillion. $30 trillion. An astronomical sum. You're asking what the United States will buy with it?
No, well, wait. Politically, it looks like this, that we're going to profit here. No.
You're exaggerating that we'll be the only country to profit. Also, remember when Trump tried to buy Greenland from Denmark in his first term? Reuters reported today that Europeans are already working to ensure near military security. Today in Greenland, there's been talk of a military takeover, but what people are suggesting won't happen. Indeed, Trump will try to buy it again. Greenland's residents are expected to get major dividends from this. It won't be a simple one-time payment. Instead, it will be distributed over years. It's very beneficial for Denmark, but for example, the Danish minister is a very unpleasant person. She's one of the best in the European Union. She praised Zelensky a lot there, and she's trying to push this policy. Let's be honest, what will Europe do? What will Europe do? Hold a summit in Meru like they love to do there. Subtitles by Dima Torzok, subtitles Dima Torzok, subtitles by Dima Torzok, subtitles made by Dima Torzok, subtitles by Dima Torzok. That's likely why the European Union and the United Kingdom aren't included. Subtitles by Dima Torzok, subtitles made by Dima Torzok made the subtitles. Good follows.
Well, all right, then why not all get together and set a new rule, a new rule? That territorial waters are kind of a different concept, neutral, completely different too. Some waters of the world ocean, navigation is actually basically a minus. This is no different at all. If we continue this line of the tanker fleet and transfer it over there to Russia and Europe. This is absolutely no different from the special operations that Malyuk, who resigned, took responsibility for involving sabotage, military sabotage. When the drones launched, it's mostly the same. It's just that it was kind of official, like the country of Ukraine. An official service attacked. And here we see that they're detaining people, basically. They're confiscating something. And, well...
Ukraine is currently at war with Russia. For a moment...
Actually, no.
No, well, legally no, but in fact it's going in that legal direction.
Do you understand me? It's the same thing again. I kind of see that arrogance there on social media in the comments. Everyone writes that you need to, how do you say, don't push the horses, you need to, as Usyk liked to say, who defended that same Malyuk. What's the thing? What's the very important understanding here? Look, every ship has 3 or 4 flags. Everyone sees it. That's how they operate. It's all about insurance issues, freight money, and so on. It's all purely an economic story. It's the same, except here we saw an attack and direct damage while there's just rough redistribution. It's like a raider takeover. They're being pushed out and can't work by their old rules. New rules are needed, but Trump isn't offering any. Why not?
Isn't this a raider squeeze out? It's illegal shadow business, and the civilized world led by Trump is cracking down as before. It's not just the official Russian flag with legal authority. Before the war with Ukraine, did anyone interfere with Russian ships? No, everything was legal and done before the sanctions and all this. It only became illegal after, editor. That's because Russia attacked Ukraine. And once again, I ask you, let's go through the points one by one, because now we're talking about Maduro, then the fleet again, we're jumping around too much. For example, I've already forgotten what you started with. I wanted to say something very important in this context, so thank you.
It's important for the viewers. You kind of started debating a bit.
Started debating?
Started debating. It's very simple here. Russia has to respond somehow, respond with something together with China, in any case, because Europe is in between right now. Well, in general, in such a specific situation, everything is actually very logical and step by step. Europe and America have some serious tension over Greenland because it's coming up. Russia and China could theoretically get closer and come up with something of their own. Russia can't really come up with much regarding America, that's for sure, but maybe China can. We remember how China, for example, imposed controls on the export of rare earths, and that slightly adjusted Trump's policy, made him a bit more restrained. But China lets it through, it turns out. First lets the tanker through, then lets Maduro through. Well, it's blow after blow. Now everyone is writing about the Panama Sea. With these same Chinese companies, what can China do? How do you see it? Because, to say that now the civilized world, look, the way they act hardly resembles a civilized approach. Well, objectively, you don't seize a civilian vessel by military means because it doesn't pose a threat, but the United States legally declares that some vessel with some oil poses a threat specifically to the United States of America. You see, that's also a far-fetched circumstance, but only because Trump decided so.
I'm not talking about you, so don't take it personally. But when it happened with Maduro, Russians started to argue that it was illegal. Look at this lawlessness. You can't do things like that. This is terrorism and so on. All right, I have a simple question. How do you deal with people like Putin, Xi, Iran, and that whole group? How do you deal with them? They make the rules but ignore laws and civility, always acting aggressively. So a stronger guy has come along to deal with the tough guy, and you need to start working with them.
What rules did Putin set? Wait, what are you talking about? Well,
Putin attacked Ukraine. China is trading with them and basically fueling, in fact, Russia is a proxy for China, fueling this war. Is that normal and right? Is it Ukraine and the United States making such claims? Did Ukraine attack anyone? No, despite Zelensky and Poroshenko's actions.
They've already attacked there. The war's been ongoing for 4 years. Who started it first?
Who started it first?
Who started it? There are also similar questions here. What kind of questions?
Ukraine isn't the aggressor, so what's the issue?
I don't want to bring them up. The root causes justification. Just look, this whole situation leads us to one thing, that peace negotiations are pointless. Look at Zelensky, how happy he is, how glad he is, how he comments on Maduro, how he hints at Putin. He now says if the Americans capture Kadyrov, Putin will understand and supposedly calm down. This phrase with the twisting of the nose can be twisted off, in short. Well, it turns out that apparently it looks like after Paris they talked Kushner and Vitkov into it, kind of sweet-talked him, sat down with him. And now America is, as it were, a priori for Ukraine again and will be ready. Right now it's just ready to stand by, like Trump described. They're just used to that quote about NATO. Then throw in a little money, then maybe something else, and basically, well, hello, Zelensky's salvation. After all, everything you're describing about Maduro, well, we, Ukraine, are also turning into that kind of Latin American country.
Yes, thank you. Zelensky is quite similar to Maduro in style. All dictators are alike. I'll step back to discuss why agreement is difficult, then address Zelensky and the challenges of making a deal with Putin, who claims Ukraine attacked my palace after such talks. How terrible. They call Trump and claim Ukraine attacked. The CIA then briefs Trump, saying Ukraine hit a nearby facility, but there was no plan to target the palace. How can you have a serious discussion or agree on anything with them? That's my main point about Zelensky. I ignore him and suggest others do the same. We've already dealt with this. Do you remember when Trump, maybe in 1991 or about 3 months ago, said we need to take back the borders and give Zelensky everything? Everything is already flourishing there. He naively thinks Trump supported him since he views everything as me versus Putin, but it's really Ukraine versus Russia. Trump handled everything and dealt with them professionally and decently. Well, Zelensky and Putin are both outlaws. It's just that Putin has more resources, he's more powerful, so it's harder with him in that sense. And that's why now it might seem to someone that Trump has taken a side, but Trump was globally on the side of Ukraine because it's a matter of justice. Apart from geopolitics, in this case, Russia is the aggressor, Ukraine is the victim. I repeat, despite all the stupidity, despite the fact that many things are not so clear-cut, I agree with all of that.
All right, then what are the prospects for all of this that was made public yesterday? I'll just remind you that the Americans are kind of keeping their distance from the decision to deploy bases on Ukrainian territory after the war ends. And the French and Germans, well, not on German territory. There, somehow, Scholz seemed to waver a bit. He says, I'll provide security for the whole continent. Then he says, no. We'll stand there on the NATO border and basically watch Ukraine through binoculars, but we'll also be guarding and helping Ukraine. But if she doesn't, we've already had enough Ukrainians in Germany. Let them stay in their own country. And actually, this topic, let's send 700,000 troops. I mean, once again, 700,000 troops. 700... So, the armed forces of Ukraine is the first line of defense for us, for Europe, for the civilized world, as you put it, military bases, advisors should. So, basically, the memorandum that was signed and the statements that were made yesterday did not bring the end of the war in Ukraine any closer, but rather pushed it further away. This is not beneficial for Trump. Wait, Trump should be against this. But it turns out he's speaking through Kushner and Vitkov. Well, yes, a little. We're actually discussing reconstruction. BlackRock will help Ukrainians find jobs. In short, they quietly and carefully backed out. Vitkov stayed calm. Unlike in London with the coalition of the willing, he sat for 20 minutes and then left. Remember that episode? He stayed until the end. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, I knew that this thing would be signed, and I'll tell you, something else might be signed in January or February. But these are all documents with vague legal wording, you see. They have legal force, but without clear wording, very ambiguous documents. So yesterday, this is called a declaration of intent, an agreement, but it's not something concrete. It's about intentions, meaning they sat down and put on paper what they plan to do. In business, that's often just paperwork, trust me. Everyone saw the same thing yesterday. Every speech from Zelensky to Macron to Sturm was the same. Merz gave a speech and the last one was Vitkov, and Kushner was standing nearby. Vitkov spoke for 4 or 5 minutes. I know that for sure. 4 or 5 minutes. He really talked about business. He talked about BlackRock. He did a lot for Ukraine. This topic also sparked significant debate about the economy, with Macron now showing hostility toward Putin in the domestic market. For about 9 months, he has been rebuilding ties with Russia and will now stay in close contact. No one will escalate the situation, especially Macron. You know his politics. He said he won't run for office, and his ratings are very low, like everyone else's. Macron has no rating, Zelensky has no rating, Starmer has no rating, Merz has no rating, no one has a rating, Vitkov has a rating, but he is not the president. So you shouldn't pay attention to Zelensky's reaction. Well, of course, right now, you see, it's personal for him. It's about how he looks for himself right now. Well, what Putin gave in, look, Trump is almost backing me, and these statements start coming out, like when they caught Maduro. America showed how to deal with dictators. So are you a dictator who should be treated that way? Now he's saying this about Kadyrov. It's all about power. Then there was the telethon. I laughed so hard. The telethon on YouTube. The preview made me crack up, and that was it. Like when he said that, well, you know, it's for idiots, a show for idiots.
So these idiots, they're Ukrainians, it turns out, who can't do anything.
Russians have many idiots, and I saw that again yesterday. Ukrainians have many too. I'm not denying it. Today on Facebook, guess what I found? A woman seriously posts 2 photos of Trump, and she's analyzing them, saying that Trump is going to die soon. Because according to her, physiologically, he's already like this. His head is like this. And she writes 4 paragraphs saying that Trump is going to die soon, but 5 minutes later, Trump says, without me, Ukraine wouldn't exist anymore. They're both ungrateful people, both of them. But if Russia keeps going like this with Trump, oil prices will collapse, and Putin's situation will get really bad. And Russians, some of them, I have to say, there are a lot of decent people there. But this aggressive part of Russians who hate everyone around them with their so-called values. They might end up asking for humanitarian aid from America again. It could even come to that. If they keep running things this way.
Aid, what for? Humanitarian?
Because if oil prices collapse, you remember how much oil cost under Yeltsin, $10, $10. And then Putin came and prices soared and everyone connected it to Putin. No, in the same way, everything can go back. Well, not 10.
Of course it will be. Look, this is actually all a very... I wouldn't measure it linearly. Eras, generations, ideology, and Putin were different mechanisms.
How the Soviet Union was dismantled.
No, look, wait. Do you think that Trump is systematically working towards the collapse of the Russian Federation?
No, actually, this isn't seen as a big issue. Russia splitting into 20 parts, as Ukrainian propaganda claims. People here are very cautious about it. And these articles about Kozak aren't coming out for no reason either. You've probably read about Kozak's reform program in the New York Times. All these nuances in his relationship with Putin, none of this is happening by accident. A more reasonable, non-aggressive, and democratic-minded person could end up leading Russia. There's no need to destroy anything. Our people just dream of division, thinking Ukraine would benefit, which is nonsense. Nuclear weapons are also a big factor, but that's another topic. I'm just showing you what happens when you don't handle things properly. You could have lived normally without showing any aggression. Our business is ours, theirs is theirs. I never discuss Russian affairs since I'm from Ukraine, but they always talk about Ukraine. Here's what I don't get. Did I want this hostility? No. When this began, we watched the same television channels, but then they started banning them. Missiles flew there. What was all this for?
Look here, let's do it this way. Well, we could have lived normally. We didn't have to expand NATO to the east. We didn't have to bring NATO in everywhere. Look, who did what? Where did NATO expand? Wait, where did NATO expand?
Yes, but we're not counting recent expansions like Sweden and Finland joining NATO after the war started or Ukraine becoming a member. No, 2 weeks ago, documents were published, declassified officially by the United States. The State Department released the documents. Any viewer right now who's upset can go and read them. Bush, Obama, and others assured Putin Ukraine would never join NATO, and he knew this. But it's a great topic for this military merry-go-round.
Let me clarify, no, it's not for the military merry-go-round. It's actually a great topic to understand what's going on. It happened in Paris today. Zelensky is in Cyprus, well, yesterday in Paris today, and yes, I know. So it's an important point. Well, what happened yesterday is very little different from the victory formula. Remember, the one Zelensky had, of course, and how many there have been since then? Now this is the victory formula. Again, a very important nuance. The constitution of Ukraine is only needed when they need to cover themselves, to cover up some shame, a referendum, to say something else like, let's ask the people something, when they need to shift responsibility, when they need to play a game. And this is a very simple technique. That's exactly when, yes, reparations, that's it. Now, there's this thing about Ukraine needing to be in NATO. It was like that under Biden and all that. Yes, we remember the whole story, Vilnius and all. Yes, then he says, no, Ukraine should have the right to be in NATO. At some point, well, they started discussing the terms 25 years, 10 years, how long to guarantee that it won't happen. Then they clearly said Ukraine will not be in NATO, but then NATO countries will have their bases on the territory of Ukraine. Basically, we see a very weak metamorphosis. Yes, it's kind of fading away while years and years go by. That is, in another year or two, we will see another coalition of some willing, able, and those tearing their shirts off. Perhaps the government will simply change in some key countries of the European Union, and we will finally come to the point that Ukraine must follow the constitution and change that provision. Because, well, or as it was suggested, yes, that NATO will write in its structural documents that Ukraine will not be in NATO just like that, and then everything will sort of calm down. We'll get through this, but there are still 27 other points, which they reduced to 19, so it turns out this is just dragging out everything as much as possible, but why Zelensky is trying to drag out this situation as much as possible, I can't find an answer to that question. They reported that the money from the European Union, those notorious 90 billion, which won't be enough, of course, won't be enough.
Won't be enough.
Of course.
Won't be enough.
Not all of that is cash at the end of Q2. Some is available now until February. They shifted things and borrowed some. Yes. Today, the dollar has already hit a historic record against the hryvnia. Well, in general, the dollar is strengthening amid all the global events. But nevertheless, we keep this in mind, and we understand that we'll fight until February, and then that's it. And then what? What is Zelensky's plan?
That's why I said when they announced those 90 billion, everyone was ecstatic. They grabbed their calculators. They know the economy, budget, and expenses. Sasha, only idiots believed this and felt happy. Regarding the points of the plan, don't focus on that, I'm telling you for sure. There are non-public points of the plan. And why is that? I was outraged when Stefan Chuk, you saw it, recently came out and made a statement about the referendum. Maybe there will be only one question. Do you support the peace plan or not? But at the same time, we won't show it to you, because I know it won't be possible to show all the points of the plan. We'll know the public ones, but not the 5 to 10 private ones. Is that fair? Why does Zelensky need this? On November 3, 1926, America had midterm elections. And in Zelensky's mind, although he's actually here again in Mar-a-Lago, the last time there was a very tough conversation with Zelensky, actually a continuation, a really tough conversation with Zelensky, unpleasant for him. When everyone left the office where they were sitting, I think Zelensky is trying again in his mind to trick Trump, to trick him before the midterm elections. You said there's no money, and so he maneuvers through this every day. I've always told you this, and I tell you this everywhere. There's only one plan. Today is January. How do we hold on to power until the end of January? Then February will start, and it'll be, how do we hold on to power until the end of February? And everything revolves around this. All these appointments, almost all of them, almost all are connected to this, but not all.
Well, Budanov. Today, Zelensky spoke oddly about Budanov, and Budanov responded saying everyone started talking in riddles. Did you notice? Yesterday, there was hardly any information besides these statements about the intention to build military bases. Today, Zelensky writes, we are openly addressing serious issues: Zaporizhzhia, nuclear matters, and territorial integrity. In short, there are some practical steps, practical things that have been agreed upon, that have been reached as a result of the agreements. However, Budanov comments so elegantly, saying that we can't talk about everything, not everything can be shared. And everyone looks at him, at the former head of intelligence, and says, oh yes, yes, of course, but Zelensky gives himself away quite a bit, says Budanov. He will handle the exchanges, well, continue to do so because he was good at it, but as for information policy, well, he won't really be involved. He has a different task there. He'll be working on that in his own way. It turns out all those analysts were right who said that Zelensky simply brought his enemy closer and now is going to burden him. Go there, I don't know where, bring something, I don't know what, while he'll be running around here. Basically, that's how Budanov will disappear, and everyone will link him so closely with Zelensky's team in power, and accordingly, it will pretty much bury any rating.
Well, Budanov is not my hero, but I have to say he's not such a foolish person to fall for something like that so easily. He has his own game. And I don't remember if I told you this or if I just told myself. In the end, the heads of the special services will be saving themselves. Why was Malyuk removed? In the end, he started saving himself when things got tense, with American sanctions and Yermak pushing him to fight Huridi. Do you know about that operation they attempted? Let's go after Busa. Let's go after these opposition members. A signal came from the United States and he realized he didn't need to do it, so he saved himself. Budanov is doing the same, playing his own game. Zelensky, meanwhile, keeps making mistake after mistake. So he made a mistake, Chow, right from the very beginning. He made a mistake, actually. When he just became president, he made a mistake, and then he kept making mistakes. Mistake after mistake. He's backed himself into a corner with no way out. Now, the only thing left is to do what we can. Budanov, in the political sense, is using the military to cover himself. And now, in the near future, there might be another appointment that will shock everyone at the Sluzhba Vneshny Razvedki.
I can't guarantee it.
That this will happen. What was that, Kuleba?
Or something. Kuleba in the forehead? Okay, Kuleba in the forehead.
If it's Kuleba, then it will be Portal 95, but if it's a military person, then it means he's hiding behind the military. I predicted this. When asked about the head of the presidential office, I suggested appointing a strong security official. He then named intelligence officer Budanov to lead the foreign intelligence service. Zelensky, as I see it, needs to surround himself with military personnel. The subtitles claim Rybachica opposes Zelensky and thus the military, which is how he expects society to see it. His current tactic is to shield himself with the military. They'll be fending them off for me for now while I keep doing my thing. Who knows, maybe Putin will disrupt things. Trump might lose the midterms or Europe could step in again, but it's all a dead end. A global decision needs to be made. Zelensky doesn't care about Ukraine. He doesn't understand that a global decision needs to be made now about how to move forward. I'll be honest with you, I'm not really interested in Donbas and Crimea anymore. I'm more concerned about what will happen to the rest of the country, how it will live and develop. Because if this is done wrong, then there will definitely be another war or some other catastrophe.
No, you have to understand it's not that I'm unconcerned about Donbas and Crimea. Maybe I'm just more concerned about Dnipro, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson.
I'm concerned. Yes, I'm concerned.
Well, about, Kyiv. You can live just fine with the capital in Lviv. Didn't they consider moving it there at the start of the war? No, well...
Please don't attribute that to me. I'm not trading territories. I'm saying that I don't go to bed thinking, God, how will I live without Crimea and Donbas? I felt for the people from the very beginning when it happened. But I don't want to be a hypocrite who will now tell you that if we get Crimea and Donbas back, life in Ukraine will suddenly flourish. That's the only reason we're not successful. Otherwise, we would have shown it off.
Let's put it this way. And how do we properly give up Crimea and Donbas?
You don't need to give up anything. Putin controls it. Trump suggests doing nothing and recognizing them as Russian. That was the idea. Just avoid sudden moves. That's a harmless option, if you ask me. I didn't lose them, give them up, or take responsibility for that. People won't be able to live on those territories anymore, which are currently being bargained over. It's a place that's truly unfit for living, and I didn't make it that way. That's why I'm reasoning politically from the point of view of the future. Surgically, I'm saying things that are very unpleasant even for me, but it's the only way to move forward. Dr. Komarovsky said that sometimes amputation is needed to save the body from gangrene. I think that's true.
Well, the question is there a body? You see, that's the question, right?
There is a body, definitely. And the fact that Trump's team is now talking about what I've told you and everyone else, that also really amuses some supporters of Russia. This is Ukraine's economic potential. Rubio talks about it, Vitkov personally talks about it, Trump talks about it. We can judge Zelensky's phrase about Trump tripling salaries as well. I've heard people mock this too. He's right. Economic strength is the only real security guarantee. Everything else, like yesterday's agreement, is just paperwork.
So wait, you mean from the same mouths you hear Trump steal Kadyrov so Putin gets nothing, and Trump raise Ukrainian salaries? I just can't understand this at all. So, oh, who's in charge here? Wait, Trump?
Well, for Zelensky, Trump is like a big daddy he can hide behind right now. Why did he say that thing on audio? Do you remember? It was on audio again about Trump. He'll raise salaries threefold. What they mean is he's being worked on by the American delegation over there. Yes, Ukraine could thrive. Gross domestic product will rise. American business will invest and money will flow. So you shouldn't block the movement of money. And the question there is like, could a Ukrainian salary go up over time? He interpreted it his own way and presented it to society as if to show off, saying it's all simple. People often build complex mechanisms, but Kvartal 95 operates simply. Zelensky knows nothing about economics, absolutely nothing, 000.
He knows nothing about economics or military affairs. I don't know. He also knows nothing about understanding social processes and about the Constitution, which he is supposed to guarantee. Also nothing. We hear that. Zero.
Someone like that shouldn't run for president.
So why does Trump need him?
Trump doesn't need him. By chance, that's how it went. Trump uses what he has, just like we discussed Maduro earlier. There's that vertical structure and the vice president receives certain information. The choice is yours. By the way, for her, if she doesn't obey, it will be over. That's sad. The same goes for Zelensky. Right now, you see, it's not that simple. Here, when it comes to governing a country, the CIA is actively working and studying these processes, even today. Removing Zelensky suddenly is a big risk. Tomorrow, everything could change for Ukraine.
Risk of what?
Processes that may occur?
Well, what kind of processes? Well, again, look, let's try again. On the other hand, we're just relying on the beginning of the conversation about Maduro, even if our opinions don't match, but we're still trying to analyze. Look, Maduro is out of the picture. I'm telling you what I claim. And you're saying that now, basically, they're being held hostage. Well, the whole Maduro hierarchy, but everyone basically stayed in their positions, and now they'll either follow or not follow the Americans' conditions. So, in this sense, Venezuela, in terms of its sovereignty, basically as a country is enslaved. They were told not to be friends with China, Russia, or Cuba.
I'm asking you once again not to jump around because we're disorienting people.
Don't look at all this. Because the Americans, yes, the Americans removed...
What was enslaved? Today Venezuela is celebrating. What kind of enslavement is that if all of Venezuela is celebrating the overthrow of Maduro? These videos aren't being shown, and the American globalist press isn't airing them either, since it's not profitable. Thanks to Elon Musk. Without him, it would be over.
Look,
people are celebrating in Venezuela. What kind of enslavement are we talking about?
Look,
somewhere American troops are driving around.
What are we talking about? Wait, they might...
You're contradicting yourself.
How am I contradicting myself? Wait, you...
First, what enslaved? Then the entire Maduro vertical remained. What changed?
Well, so everything remains now with the acting authority. Yes, enslavement. Now the acting authority has a choice. That is, no one has cancelled the mobilization, right? Well, the one that Veni led in Venezuela, yes, no one has cancelled it.
They're recruiting mercenaries funded by China, Iran, and Russia. I've seen how this ends and can send you a video after the broadcast.
Look, well, I would like, once again, Trump, maybe I just remember why I'm saying this. Yeah, I didn't fin. I'm getting into this discussion with you again. Everyone has heard your position, and I'm not going to try to convince you, just like you're not going to convince me. This could really backfire on Trump really badly if there isn't a series of decisions like the ones you're talking about, if things don't happen very quickly. And here, by the way, I agree with you, if things don't happen very quickly. If something doesn't happen with Colombia, with the Panama Canal, or Greenland, for example, then that Fredrickson, Zelensky's friend, might wake up and say, well, listen, why don't we just sell this thing off, like selling something unnecessary to buy something unnecessary?
But if she doesn't sell it, remember the Flamingo missile she's making with Zelensky. It could target Trump and Metrolet.
Yeah, look, there's a lot here. If these events don't snowball and everything drags on into routine, they'll even celebrate it solemnly. And everyone will be just as happy when they free Maduro. So right now is a very important period. Time is running out and decisions need to be made quickly. Trump doesn't have time to rule, celebrate, rejoice, and so on. Because that's how world orders are quickly formed, and that's why I'm giving this example again. I'll just remember the thought. You say there will be irreversible processes if Zelensky is gone. A Latin American country, as you say. Chaos, disorder, clans, weapons, that kind of mess, right? Although, in principle, Caracas is a beautiful, nice city. I mean,
It's actually a wonderful country in itself.
but still, there was shooting there too. On the second day, someone launched a drone and they were shooting at the drone. Something happened somewhere. Naturally, we didn't notice any unrest, but in my opinion, that's exactly because the same structure remains, and now it will somehow settle things. There was no catastrophe with the American administration. In the same way, if you replace one person, well, maybe two, a man and a woman, husband and wife. In Ukraine, if people just woke up one morning and there was no Zelensky, everyone would somehow immediately agree to all sorts of peace terms. And no one would be dragging things out or playing games anymore.
In Ukraine, Ukraine is de facto at war. But the CIA thinks differently. From your point of view, do you think I didn't want that? But the CIA sees risks in this. And the main risk is that the peace talks will practically fall apart. And Russia will see that it can keep pushing since the political situation in Ukraine is unstable. Something like that, though the wording might not be exact. Also, regarding Trump, you're missing a major difference between him and Zelensky. Zelensky plans a week ahead, while Trump, working with all agencies and the administration, is making plans for years. Here we are discussing something with you, but over there, 5 steps ahead, they've already thought through the reaction to everything. Do you think they don't take these risks into account? I'm not mentioning Iran or Stalin-era buildings without reason. They're part of a larger chain of upcoming events, possibly very soon.
All right, so what are the prospects for resolving the Russian-Ukrainian war? Well, the real ones, because many people now agree that this whole chain of events is part of Trump's geopolitical game, plus the events with Ukraine and Europe. It has buried peace. Despite claims we're closer to peace than ever, we're actually moving farther away.
No. In reality, everything is going as it was, neither further nor closer. Everything is going as it is.
As it was.
I'm telling you, right now, Zelensky is in a period where the focus is shifting to Putin. You see, there was pressure on him too, but now everyone is putting pressure on Putin. He can relax a bit, which makes him cheerful, but things can change quickly, including pressure from the war in Ukraine. Right now, Putin is under pressure. The main point is that Putin must act reasonably and diplomatically for things to improve quickly. This way, events won't escalate and peace can return to Ukraine. If Putin did that now, Zelensky's problem would immediately arise. I'm not ignoring that. Zelensky will keep acting up.
And what does that mean? Explain. Putin should conduct normal affairs, normal ones. What does that look like?
Well, look, do you agree that lately, since December, diplomacy has become much more active and things have really started moving toward rapprochement?
Of course, yes, look.
What Russia is doing. So, Zelensky comes to Mar-a-Lago, gets pistons, leaves. Putin takes advantage of the fact that Zelensky blurted out, "Let Putin die," when he was congratulating the nation on Christmas, and tells Trump. They call urgently, "We're under attack." So there, in Valdai, they're attacking Putin's residence. Well, why do this? This is serious in the eyes of Trump and the Americans. Why engage in such primitive things at this level?
Look, I think the game here is much more cunning. Well, with those chips that were handed over in front of the cameras, remember, yes, that story with the debris found in the forest, we tried our best to show and demonstrate everything as much as possible. I think that, once again, we've come to something here. To the fact that, yes, something was flying in that direction, but not exactly there, and you can't really figure out if it went there or not. They gave us some chips, and then they'll say, no, it's a fake.
Anyone can prove that however they want. Just remember, during Trump's first term, do you recall that he didn't...
Explain this to me. You're sitting in Mar-a-Lago, getting chewed out. That's your version, but you could tell it differently. You're sitting in Mar-a-Lago, getting chewed out, as you put it, and launching missiles, drones, flaming things, those Neptunes, long ships.
I'm talking about Zelensky getting...
But I'm saying you, Zelensky, are sitting there, getting it, and launching a missile over there on that night, when you have those negotiations.
That's what I mean. Let's not mix things up. I'm not denying Ukraine attacked Russian territory that night, just not Putin's nearby residence.
We know whether it was the residence or not. Trump first said yes, then said no, then said they flew, but not there. Well, kind of not there.
Come on, if you want to figure it out, I'll explain it to you. When Trump was in his first term, he had a very bad relationship with TRU. In fact, he stopped using, let's call it, their service here. And he started using and still uses private intelligence agencies. This exists in America and in the world in general. Now the situation has changed somewhat. He sometimes plays golf, shoots with the head of the club, but there is still some tension in this relationship. I'm saying this because if he is taking this into account now, it means it's serious. Putin's residence wasn't attacked, but Ukraine struck a nearby facility. On air, Arestovets mentioned a nuclear facility there.
Well, some kind of command post.
Yes, a command post, I can easily believe that. Is that correct? No, that's why I'm saying that Putin and Trump, Putin and Zelensky, these are the kinds of people. So is Trump a civilized businessman? Was he unable to have a dialogue? Let's use different methods with you.
Let's put it this way. There was a strike and an attack. Russia shouldn't have used the strike or commented. They should have just accepted it quietly.
They should have stated the truth, not said that Putin's residence was attacked. It wasn't attacked. Arestovich's version, which spread widely in America, claims it was a nuclear facility and command post. All right, go ahead and announce it. Zelensky is a good guy, but disrupts peace like Putin and is now hiding behind Trump. It's temporary, but how tough is he being with Putin? Imagine if it were Maduro or what he could do to Zelensky.
He thinks
that they won't do this to him because we are at war.
All right, so now there is news coming in about this Mariner, about the Mariner vessel. In short, Russia is demanding that the United States ensure humane and decent treatment of Russian citizens on the vessel and respect their rights and interests. The United States should not delay Russian citizens returning home. Moscow is watching reports on the disembarkation closely. That's the Russian Foreign Ministry. Well, that's absolutely, kind of the reaction there. There's also something that came up. I don't know if it's true or not. There's no way to check it yet. Well, in general, there were also Ukrainians on board. Among the crew of this particular ship that was captured in the north. Yes, Marinera, not Sofia, but Marinera. So that's the kind of news you should watch. So you are absolutely, I basically understand the way you think. You are now, kind of don't see any prospects for the war ending soon. Well, aren't you talking about this? It's just...
I really believe in the next 2 months.
2 months.
Yes, in January and February there will be important events. Believe me, diplomatically. There will be.
We can judge these 2 months and those events that will happen based on what kind of renewed team Zelensky has, or if it has been done, absolutely not.
These are unrelated and unconnected things. It's still a process. The United States is in charge, and Zelensky is already adjusting things to his wishes and ideas. According to the United States plan, it's not for nothing. Everything picked up in December. Russia also showed prudence then, since nothing is possible without it. Now, these events are happening because tension keeps rising. We've tried different things, but nothing works, so the tension continues to build. But I repeat, Zelensky too. Serious consequences could arise as soon as March if things go wrong. And as you said, there won't be any money.
There really won't be much money left. And KHM, you see, based on what we're observing inside Ukraine, everything is geared toward war. Campaigns against draft dodgers are being launched. New ones.
It can't be any other way.
They're shaking things up even more. And these statements from Merz, for example, saying, stop sending us men, let them defend Ukraine, he's a scoundrel.
He's a scoundrel letting savages in who kill and rape. That doesn't bother him. Let's not say where they're from, but Ukrainians bother him. No, it's just playing along with the situation. Really. Do you know why he wants to do this, so the war lasts longer? Send the grunts there, go to Ukraine, fight, so the war becomes Europe's shield, be Europe's body armor. And we'll just stay here with the savages. Let them keep killing and raping us. That's what this is all about. That's exactly why his ratings are going down and FDs are going up. These aren't my words, it's a fact.
No.
That's just how it is.
I think that's a pointer to a strategy, to a certain plan, so Europe is a no. The plan is that Ukraine, one way or another, will lower the mobilization age and close the borders for young men aged 18 to 22. And if anyone over there can hear us, you need to think about it, yes, because later on things will get worse.
You need to think about it. But according to my information, Zelensky has had one of the few honest reports on his desk, not since yesterday or today, but much earlier, which says that if they carry out the mobilization you're talking about, for 18 to 20-year-olds, there will be very sad social consequences. So the way I understand it, that's the red line after which his internal situation will completely collapse. Even his supporters will ask, "What are you doing, sending our children to war?" Even patient mothers will start to rebel. Well, I don't know if that's true or not.
There will be elections in Ukraine. Zelensky announced today that new legislation will be ready in February.
The deadline is the end of February. Sash, I told you on air 100 times, May 2026, I gave you a time frame. I remember exactly, from spring to autumn. And you even said, oh, that's a wide time frame. That's about how it stays. But the plan is for the end of May. The plan is for the end of May. If you calculate, by the way, if you pass the legislation in February and announce exactly 100 days, that's the end of May. 90?
Continuation. All right, then. Zelensky with these elections, yeah, he's going to push and force a referendum. Well, they'll happen simultaneously before the referendum with elections after. Overall, do you believe in the referendum?
Do you want the exact words from someone on Zelensky's team? Thanks. There is no plan at all. They don't know whether there will be elections or not, whether there will be a referendum or not. All of this is being discussed in the press, and at any moment things can be played either way, in one direction or the other. Zelensky has no plan. We have elections and referendums, but that's not happening. They just react to events, and the state is run entirely by manual control. Everything is in manual mode.
Yes, friends, thank you all very much for voting. Well, look, it's kind of like this.
Trump is to blame for this, yes. According to the viewers, yes.
Zelensky isn't Yelisevich, that's clear. According to viewers, everything is Yelisevich's fault, which is obvious. So, who turns up their nose more in the context of ending the war in Ukraine? 4 Putin, 6 Trump, and 45 each for Europe and Zelensky. So together, Europe and Zelensky make 90. 90. I think that's pretty close to the truth. And do we see this new entente, as such?
They're politically impotent. They can't do anything.
Well, look, you see, news is coming in right now.
This is their last year in power.
I'm keeping an eye on the news feed, just glancing at it. You see how Kelly is the most powerful defense minister. Because Britain says our people took part in the capture of the ship. Like, wow, we were there, the United States helped, here we are, we captured it, all that stuff. Guys, I mean, it's just completely lost logic, but maybe that's just me speaking as a communications specialist from my own perspective. First of all, the vocabulary, and second, the actual statement. What does it mean to seize a ship? Interestingly, whether there were submarines or not, there was a submarine and Russian ships.
In the first ship's case, they didn't make it in time.
Well, Reuters...
They rushed there, but they didn't make it in time.
Reuters claims they were present and watching, while Fox News argues, no, they were on their way but didn't arrive, so they weren't there. Now it's seen as heroic to tell the British we helped the Americans, but how exactly did we help? Well, some fishermen and sailors, let's say.
How did they look when Maduro was taken by Trump? He didn't even inform them.
And this Starmer...
What are we talking about now? They're also acting all tough and hiding behind the back of the big daddy. Why didn't you act like that when tough measures were required from you? Remember Biden? Do you remember China launched that spy balloon and Biden spent a whole day deciding whether to shoot it down or not? Yeah, well, what are we talking about? You see, the world needs a real personality right now, and Ukraine needs a real personality, not these template politicians and bureaucrats.
All right, friends, let's move directly to your questions. So to speak, let's go blitz mode. All right, let's get started. Community questions first. All right, question. So, Will this seizure of the Russian tanker by Pyotr push Russia toward a blockade of the Baltic, this geopolitical zone? How do you see it?
I haven't really thought about it. I'll be honest with you. I don't have an answer to that question. I'm just looking in a different direction, more at things on the water, not all these maritime matters. Iran, like I told you, Venezuela, Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, Greenland.
Oksana, well, apparently your viewer and mine too watched your debate with Kedmi yesterday and is evaluating your arguments. Oksana makes all her arguments based on emotional manipulation, disconnected from realpolitik. You confidently said NATO never attacked other countries, but what about Yugoslavia, Iraq, and Afghanistan? Wasn't that NATO?
No one attacked Yugoslavia? Yes, there is still someone there.
And secondly, as I understand from your words, the United States has the right to invade other countries, and for you that's normal, while at the same time you say that Russia doesn't have that right. How do those fit or coexist?
She's not my viewer, that's Oksana. First of all, I want to tell you, no one attacked NATO. In NATO, it was stopped. Ethnic cleansing occurred in Yugoslavia, but NATO intervened to stop it. Claims that NATO attacked unprovoked are Russian manipulation. These cheap ones. Drawing parallels. Why is it allowed in the United States but also in Russia? There is a cause and an effect, but Russians are stubborn and only see the effect. It's pointless to answer them. You can't convince them of anything. I could see Kedmi's KGB background, as thousands of commentators joined the channel for these so-called debates. But these aren't real debates since rules aren't followed, and 80% of the time is KGB style. Interrupting and raising his voice is just like Yuri Shvets, old school KGB style, like Kedmi. A reasonable person can tell who's speaking with facts and who's just repeating a script. I ask and answer questions, but the other person just pushes his agenda without addressing questions or facts. That's how it works. I'm ready to respond to any question or fact. Over there, they're just reading a script, raising their voice, and not letting others speak. What debate is that? It's just reading. I give him several facts, up to 5, saying, "That's Ksana, yes I can," but he doesn't react. If I say Putin and Russia are great and everyone else is crap, people will instantly comment that I'm just a super educated, smart guy. Since I don't say that, I'm a nobody. And let's read after the broadcast. Who else? Right.
By the way, right, I am a citizen of Russia. I can call it a full-scale war, and Yelisevich can call the anti-terrorist operation a civil war. And who else cleared the mines in Chonhar and why? Why is there no investigation and accordingly no one punished? And with your permission, Valentina, I'll add this here. Right now, there are a lot of praises for Budanov, and on my channel, some speakers are expressing great hope about Budanov. But when you ask the question, who from the top military and political leadership has actually remained in their position from 2022 until today? And from the very beginning, yes, who is Budanov? That's the question. Then there's the issue of Changar. Why? Why isn't there an investigation? And so on. That is...
Well, it was Zelensky's secretary, Hagelashvili, not Budanov's, but Hagelashvili, Budanov's friend, Zelensky's secretary. Everything there is very closely connected. But I'll tell you this, I'm not beating up Budanov and I'm not really touching him right now because we need to wait.
About the anti-terrorist operation, can you call it a civil war?
No, it's not a civil war, it's a Russian operation. And the late Hennady Balashov, who was on your channel, is a witness to this. He went to Crimea. On day 1, Gherkin's gang kidnapped him, with involvement from the Federal Security Service Main Intelligence Directorate and the Little Green Men. But I admit that it's impossible to do this without serious discontent among the residents. Those people had a certain orientation. They wanted to be part of Russia, and they got it. This is a complete failure of the Ukrainian state. If people lived happily and prosperously without hatred being stirred, this wouldn't have happened. I admit that, but calling this a civil war. People didn't rise up alone. Russia helped. Chengar Yermak and his gang are responsible for this and should be held accountable.
Wait, the logic is strange. People didn't rise up on their own. Russia helped them. But wait, it turns out that the people on Maidan also didn't rise up on their own. America helped them.
Yes, of course, not America.
But the administration.
And Soros's organizations.
That's why they're laughing here. Has anyone seen the Kremlin's manuals? Please send them, I don't have any. Guys, if you do, share the links in the comments. So, yeah, so, well, basically, that's it. That's really it. That's really it. Pretty sad. Maybe we'll have a drink here. Someone writes, oh, let's have another drink, friends. So thanks to Yelisevich Shelest for the broadcast, for the interesting broadcast. The question is, what kind of compromise is possible, and is it possible at the moment between Ukraine and Russia? On what terms, and importantly, with which leaders?
Elections will be held in Ukraine, bringing a new leader. Conditions will remain mostly the same, except one issue still needs resolution. I think the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant should be handed over to American control as a compromise option, and regarding Donbas as well. A free economic zone is a great option in my view. That's my view, but Zelensky definitely disagrees. And in Russia, Putin will be in charge for a few more years.
After Putin, someone else will lead. That's Russia's concern.
Yes, but I hope it'll be someone else by then.
So, yes, thank you for clarifying, Sergey, about Nuland and Maidan, and about my remark that Nuland, that Soros's associate, she held an official position, so yes.
Of that administration, that's right.
Of that administration. Absolutely right. That's an official position. Well, do you understand how the world has changed now after those flags over the ships? So, de jure, there is like de facto, yes, a flag attack equals war. That's correct. Historically, it's written that way. That's how it is. But there are several flags there. They see that behind them, they sometimes put up a different flag. By the way, that Russian so-called Shadow Fleet tanker Sofia, which was further south, yes, it actually had. There, I think they were flying the flag of Cameroon, you know, so they wouldn't be identified. The flag of Cameroon, so it doesn't have to be Russia's flag. So it turns out the flag means nothing, the position means nothing, the status means nothing, nothing means anything, nothing at all means anything. You see, that's what you just said.
You don't have a manual. I absolutely don't want to offend or accuse you. Strangely, Maduro and the fleet are labeled lawless, but Russia, China, and Iran's actions are considered fine and untouchable. Sasha, this is...
I explained
what Putin and the KGB are. With Putin, everything in Russia is by the law. He's the legal president, people are killed or jailed by the law, things are stolen, and Ukraine was attacked by the law. I admit everything happens by the law, just like here. Putin, it's like this. I'm smart, and everyone else, even the whole world, is an idiot. And the United States doesn't know what to do with this fleet, that it's a shadow fleet, and that flag is there. It was only for the KGB, but we acted legally, and as you said, by law it's war. That's just how it is. As you said, we won't convince each other. It's about personal worldviews. Everyone sees life differently. I'm not judging, just stating my view.
The point isn't about how everyone understands life. Let's not get into the technical details again. Does this story about the Shadow Fleet really bother you that much? Actually, I try to tone it down as much as I can for one simple reason. Whether it's a Shadow Fleet or not depends on the country where the ship is insured. The flag shows everyone at sea at that moment which country the ship belongs to. Therefore, if it's a shadow fleet, this ship could be insured in Britain or maybe in other, let's say, jurisdictions and residencies. So it's not, as you said, cheating. That's a good word. I may or may not agree with it, but it fits. But when you start talking about this being something else, the point is bypassing sanctions, yes, that's right, bypassing, not a direct violation, bypassing. It's not when you're forbidden and you still do it, it's bypassing. These maneuvers make this oil, product, and other items either cheaper or more expensive. In other words, they are costs. Everyone understands this perfectly well, plus all these nuances, all these certain legal aspects related to shipping and everything else. It was just okay before, but now it's not okay, and something will need to be done about it. Venezuela launched military ships with its tankers. America didn't attack, just watched to see what would happen next, and it's the same now. We're on our way. Again, I didn't mention the Houthis without reason. Something is about to happen. Will the military escort these tankers? Yes, since everyone is shouting landing force, but but what does that mean? A helicopter landed, there were 10 armed men, you see, they came in and told the captain in the bridge, all right, that's it, turn around, we're going there. This isn't some kind of scary operation, it's absolutely not, it's just different rules, so it's not about worldview here. So
I want to tell you, okay, not okay. Why did you say it was okay before, but now it's not okay? Can you say why?
why? Because
When Trump took office, there was a business approach from Putin and Zelensky, and Putin was agreeing with him. I want peace, I want peace. Let's sit down in Ankara, talk. Yes, there will be peace. We're ready here, ready here, ready here. But then it turned out that they weren't quite ready, including Putin. And the last straw was about the strikes on the residents in Valdai. That's why it's not okay. You shouldn't act like they're smart and everyone else is an idiot. Yes, that's sanction evasion, so they got punished for it. For bypassing sanctions, ahem, for cheating.
all right, so maybe it's really about a worldview or something. Look, I'll say it again, it's not like it's Trump. I began there. Today's stream focuses on power and strength, but as we agree, Trump wrote everything beautifully. He says that it's them, well, America, like that's us, the ones who are feared and respected. The question is, when you cross a certain line, you risk that people will stop fearing and respecting you.
Trump didn't cross the line. It was Putin, China, and Iran who did.
Trump responded to that.
This totally confuses cause and effect.
No, Trump crossed that line. He sent the military to attack. Well, or like detaining, turning around a merchant ship. Well, I mean, Zelensky crossed the line when he started hitting a merchant ship with drones. So there are just different levels here, like, you know, on this whole legal level, whether it's shadowy or not. But here there's a fundamental action, Zelensky's attack on a ship in the Black Sea, in the Mediterranean Sea. What did it lead to? It led to them starting to hit sunflower oil. And then everyone says they're attacking a civilian target. But wait, you're attacking Russia's exports. Russia attacks your exports. It's all clear. So this kind of war is a change of rules. When Trump stepped on this line again, he didn't cross it. They'll mess with them a bit, then let them go, and everything will be fine. You see, that's how it is. But he showed this picture by using some kind of force, so something will happen in return. And this is where this new world order is being formed, you see? And there's a big risk, like with Maduro, like with those tankers, there's a big risk. Well, to lose, since many forces oppose Trump, even though people smile at him.
Let's wait and see. I assure you, this won't be the last continuation.
All right, then. Well. Yeah, we just discussed it. Thanks about the fleet, that the fleet is illegal, the fleet is the fleet. Yeah, thanks. I think that's enough about the fleet. So, a clarifying question. The goal is to clear mines from Changar.
The goal is to help the Russians occupy Ukrainian territories.
Betrayal.
Surrender of territories.
That is, under Budanov, under Zelensky, under Zaluzhny, under Yermak, well...
Of course, what do you think? Are these some incredibly smart people, or do we know everything to the end? No, I don't know. If things were simpler, we'd have had an answer to this topic long ago. Who led the security service of Ukraine then? Tell me.
Who was the head of the security service of Ukraine? Bakanov. See, that's how it is, Bakanov.
Overpowered nothing, Malyuk, who was causing chaos. Nothing, very good.
Yeah, Reznikov. And who is Reznikov?
I'm Reznikov. I want to mention the special services. These actions happened under a particular security service of Ukraine chief, whose life is easy.
No questions.
No interrogations, I know why. He has good protection. I'm happy for him.
With Budanov taking office, will National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine still act against Servant of the People Party members involved in crimes? A user asks.
Sash, can we slow down? This is too fast.
With Budanov coming to the office, will National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine continue to take action against the servant deputies? That's not related.
National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine acts on its own, with or without Budanov. I know society is waiting for this.
That's true. Well, look, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine tapes are on hold. We haven't heard Zelensky's voice. We haven't heard Yermak's voice. We haven't heard anything.
Yes, and there are a lot of materials, but for some reason they don't show the subtitles. Simon, that's also a question. I think there needs to be more pressure on civil society. I understand that it's a political process and everything is done very carefully. They conducted some searches there. Regarding music, this all began, but it's not sufficient. Society deserves better. It's just a political game. The real hostages, always the people.
People aren't hostages. No one plans to remove Zelensky. Everyone is satisfied and things are fine.
We'll see what happens based on the reaction. Today, January 7th, they're not bringing him down. But maybe on February 7th, same with Trump, things change fast. Maduro was dancing just 2 weeks ago, by the way. It was actually those dances that really got the Americans worked up. They chose to act decisively. He got a $200 million offer to leave, go to Russia, China, Cambodia, anywhere. He refused. He said no.
Yes, friends, thank you all so much for being with us on this Christmas Day. Thank you for joining this stream. Dennis, thank you for your time and thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Friends, subscribe and take care. Wishing you all kindness and light. See you, editor.